And good morning and welcome to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. As we're talking this morning with Nate O'Connell, who is running the program right now as Coach Everingham is out under the weather. And Coach O'Connell, thanks for being with us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me this morning.
So let's go back in time a little bit. We've not spoken since the holiday tournament. I thought your team showed more development maybe in the holiday tourney than in any other set of two games we've seen this year.
Yeah, you get a chance to play in the holiday tournament after playing some real good teams in Central Noble and Columbia City. I really get a chance to grow and see almost a measuring stick at the midpoint of the season. And we got a chance to play Garrett in the morning and Woodland in the evening, and two quality teams. Similar to what we'll see the rest of the way out, especially in Woodland. But I thought, just overall big picture thing, that we're getting better in all phases of the game. We're rebounding better right now. We're rebounding the ball really well, better than I anticipated us rebounding this season, actually. Playing defense a lot better than we were in the first couple weeks of the season. I'd like to think that's pretty noticeable for the fans as well, that they can see how hard we're playing on defense and some of the good concepts we're following. And offensively, we're just getting better and better each game. That's not a thing where I think you can see a huge leap and jump from week to week. But if you look from the very first game of the season to the midpoint of the season, we're just in a much better spot offensively. We kind of know what our guys can do at this point, and we're trying to figure out, schemes and sets for our guys that we want to get them in the right spot.
One of the things I've noticed, Coach, is that you and Hoffert and Everingham do a great job of communicating and organizing the kids and talking first and then going and say, hey, this is what, tell us a little bit about that, about how you guys, especially the Garrett game. I thought you guys, they won. Of course, they did win the last quarter 10-8, but you did win the whole contest 56-38.
Well, first of all, thank you, Caz. Appreciate that. There's a lot of experience on that bench between the three of us and add in, Coach Beasley and my dad and, Coach Hetrick. But I was trying to think this morning, it's like 70 years of coaching experience between John, Chad, and I. Especially Chad's been at this for a long time. Chad did an awesome job in the game last night. We'll talk about that later. Chad will get a chance to talk about last night's game. But just proud of him, proud of the coaching staff. But you got to have players that can take what the coaches teach them and do it on the floor. And we got some great kids, and they're doing that. They have exceeded all of our expectations on where they're at right now, in terms of just everyday focus and getting better, and doing exactly what we ask them to do, or trying their best to do what we want them to do, what we think will give our team the best chance to be successful. And you got guys stepping up in all phases of the game, all grade levels, and it's been great to see.
You give me a lot of heart attacks. Bill, we have that, what do you call that thing that I use for my heart?
The defibrillator?
Defibrillator, yeah, on the way out. Man, I tell you, on that Woodland game, that was, oh, geez. And, they were, I think they're a rated team on 3A.
They might not have been rated. At this point, they'd lost a few games before they played us. But they're a good team, and they had a player that's one of the best in the state. And that Joe Reedy, and 6'7", can shoot the ball.
That's
athletic.
The thing they had was size with the ability to get up and down the floor.
Yeah, and obviously they shot well against us that night, which they don't always shoot the ball as well as what they did that night. So, we learned some stuff that game, which is what you want to do every game. You want to come away with that victory. I think Dixie had that shot up in the air. It looked right on line. I thought it was. You guys probably from your angle, it probably looked straight on. I thought it was in. I thought we were going to win that game in regulation. Just didn't fall our way.
I especially that last quarter. We were behind going into that fourth quarter in the game, and then we outscored them 15-10 in that last quarter. That closed the gap, and man, what an exciting finish!
Yeah, proud of our guys for not having a lead. It's kind of back and forth game, and having a lead and then falling behind going into the fourth quarter. It's always tough to come back against varsity teams in the fourth quarter when you're down, and we did. And I think you learn from games like that. You want to be in that situation again, so the next time you're down by 5 going into the fourth quarter, you can draw from that experience. Like, oh yeah, I've done this before. I know how to do this. I just got to be myself. I'm not going to freak out. early in the year, you have the tendency, especially with a young team or an inexperienced team, to kind of freak out and try to do too much or go outside of yourself. And I think we're getting past that, and we're doing some good things.
Your team had the ability to get up and down the floor with Woodland. That wasn't a problem. But you can't you can't practice to get better at being taller. And Woodland had the size advantage. Nonetheless, your team did really well dealing with those taller individuals. How do you do that with a team when size is simply something you don't have and you can't manufacture that? How do you teach your kids to deal with that situation?
Well, a couple things. Number one, I think having Keaton Dukes on your team helps a lot. He's capable of guarding about anybody on our schedule. And he had the task of guarding someone that's about 4 inches taller than he is in that game, and did an outstanding job. And some of the shots that the Reedy kid took were really tough contested shots, and he just made good plays. And you just tip the hat and say, nice shot. The other thing we have is some strength and physicality, and someone like Caden Welty, who's really good at staying in front, being strong, and just being gritty and tough inside. And again,
then the key becomes holding your ground. Then.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So if you're strong, as you saw, NorthWood against us last night, they were just physical and strong. And we played teams like Warsaw that had just tried to push us out from the basket. And if you're not the tallest in the world, you can make up for that with some number one, some physical strength, and number two, just how you play and just how smart you play defense and being in the right position. How many times have you seen our guys step over and take charges?
Yes.
We've taken a lot of charges.
I have to say we do that just about better than anybody else.
I've not seen anybody do that better.
Coach Everingham does a great job of teaching that. We teach technique early on in the season, how to do it. We preach it in our positioning. I've been known to beg players like, Jay Finlinson to step over and take a charge for like 2 years, and then he gets it. And the cool thing is once you get it, you got it. And you do it over and over and over again.
One thing on that Woodland game, I noticed Reedy and Dukes both tied. Each had 18. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was while Bill was calling the game.
Yeah.
I was watching those two. Oh, man.
It was a display.
It was rugby basketball at its finest.
Yeah, it was quite the display offensively. It was really good to see Keaton come back into his own the last few games. Offensively, he hasn't gone anywhere defensively, but just went toe-to-toe with that kid, and we took punches and we gave punches, and it was a battle. It was a fun game to coach in. You'd like to be on the other side of that one.
Were you pleased with the way your team dealt with the 2 games in 1 day situation?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think if you watched us against Central Noble, we kind of ran out of gas in the fourth quarter.
True.
And you've seen that throughout this year. We're not super deep. We don't play a ton of guys off the bench. Our top 5 guys play a lot of minutes. Someone like, Welty plays so hard. He is so gassed. You try to give him breathers, but, at some point in the fourth quarter, you don't have that luxury. We try to save some timeouts and utilize those, but I was very happy that we were able to compete in the fourth quarter of a second game in the same day. So obviously, sectional time, you run into a Friday, Saturday back-to-back, and if you're fortunate enough and good enough to win a sectional, then you get to play 2 games in a day in a regional setting. So the reason I like that 2 games in 1 day tournament is it simulates the regional feel, where you wake up in the morning, you play a game, then you go home, you take care of your body, you get some rest, and the guys need to learn how to do that because you really, in the summertime, you play some games, but it's just not quite the same to play 2 competitive varsity basketball games in the same day. So I was definitely pleased with what we did that day.
Mm-hmm. Coach, looking forward, what did you do after those 2 games? You had that long break after that, and how did that? Did you practice, or what's the story?
9 days, right?
Yeah.
So between the holiday tournament and last night's game, what did we do? Yeah, lots of practice. Also, time off. So we took 4 days off for Christmas break, and that's about the max that we'll ever take off in a row is 4 days off in a row, because after that, the players just lose too much. And we took 3 days off after that tournament. We came in and practiced the day after. Then we took 3 days off, and then we came back on Monday. So a little bit of rest, but again, we were at Syracuse Elementary School the next day because they had some tournaments going on at the high school. We couldn't the girls are playing at the high school, so we went over there and practiced. We got a lot of shots up, kind of ran out the lactic acid out of our systems, and came back Monday, and that's when Coach Hoffert took the reins, and he practiced with the guys all week.
Hey, how's that work going from like Wawassee's home court to Syracuse, or using what? Does that make any difference? That didn't make any difference when I was in there because we did it all the time.
Last time I measured, they're all 10 feet. All the rims are 10 feet high.
Yeah, that's just like in Hoosiers, right?
Yeah.
So I really was impressed with those two games, especially like Bill and I have said 1,000 times, and here's 1,001, that game against Woodland. I mean, that was one of the most exciting games we've had all year.
It was. We would have liked to play some better defense at times in that game, but as far as a fan's perspective, overall game experience, that was a fun game.
It's a fun game to watch.
With the holiday tournament now in the rearview mirror, you might say that the season's about half over.
Yeah.
So where do you see us at the halfway point of the season?
Well, if just look at my own opinion, I think we're further along than where I anticipated us being at this point. Obviously, we're playing two freshmen, Miles and Maddox Everham, and I wasn't quite sure how they developed this year, and we realized early on that those two guys are going to have to play a lot early, and probably earlier than we would have. In a perfect world, freshmen play JV or freshman basketball, then they play JV, and they get the experience. But they just got thrown into the fire, and they have more than handled any expectations I had, and are much further along than I really even anticipated them being. So I'm super proud of those two guys. Colin Robertson has had some ups and downs this year. He's been a little bit inconsistent, but that's what you have in a junior. He started last year, but not really until the end of the season. So he's not like a season-long veteran. So he's learning as he's going. And I was proud of what Colin did in the tournament, and proud of his game last night. And he's getting better. And then Welty and Dukes have just been the leadership. And we were lucky enough to have Salazar Beer and Carey last year. And those guys were just stabilizing forces, and Dukes and Welty are becoming those guys this year, and they'd never had to be leaders before. And then Finlinson and Felger, the two other guys that have played a lot. Those juniors hadn't played any varsity basketball for the most part, very little minutes, if any. And those guys, have been role players and solid. In some games, their minutes have been there, and some games they haven't, and they've been ready at every call. Peyton hits a big three last night. Jay in the holiday tournament had a couple big threes in that Woodland game, and that's when you saw, man, we're getting somewhere here.
Yeah, I really like to watch Maddox and Miles of the Everingham variety, like they call it. Those two guys, they're going to develop into really, I think, good players for Wawasee in the future. Well, actually, they are now.
They are.
They really have a big role right now to play with their height and their ability. The other thing I really like is Robinson's using his 5'7" body. That's a joke, Bill. He's over 6 feet. He uses his size.
He's a strong kid.
Well,
yeah, he's a real strong kid. Yep.
Some of the players at both Woodland and Garrett, and even in last night's game, I mean, he screened him out just because he's bigger and he got good position, and he was able to block out really well.
Yeah, and he's learning how to use his size and his strength, and he'll become a better and better basketball player. And I think by the end of the year, you'll really see Colin shining out there.
We'll be back in just a moment here on Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. And welcome back to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. Joining us now here at, I'll let you do the introductions, Coach.
Oh, yeah.
One of your old schoolmates here.
Yeah.
As, you guys both taught together.
Well, Chad and I taught together for at least 500,000 years. But
Chad Hoffert with us.
Yeah, Chad Hoffert.
Last night he was the varsity coach, and he's always the JV coach, and he just does incredible stuff down in the program. But go ahead.
I just think you guys did a great job last night, especially you. You were out on the floor, talking to the kids, and then when timeouts and in between quarters, the two of you guys got together, and you even included Beasley in that, and really worked together well. I thought you guys did a great job last night.
Well, let me tell you, this was an entire an entire team effort, all the way from the coaches and the players. And I'll just give you a little insight on sort of how the week progressed and so forth. Coach Everingham had a family emergency that he had to go deal with late last week, and so he was going to miss some time to go deal with an unfortunate circumstance there, and then after the holiday tourney, he had to leave and so forth, and so we knew that he was going to miss a couple days of practice, and so I was going to kind of take care of the beginning of the week, but then he was going to come back and sort of handle the second half of the week like normal as we prep and so on. And he started not feeling a little bit under the weather, and nothing specific. He just was being cautious and so forth. So the decision was made to just, like I said, be cautious and make sure that we're not we want to make sure that we're taking care of our players, taking care of our coaches.
You don't want to expose any of those guys to whatever he might have.
Exactly, since he had traveled and so forth.
Could have been COVID. I mean, it wasn't, but it could have been.
Yeah. So, nothing serious, but again, just wanted to make sure we're doing the right things for everybody. So, I had been talking with him, daily and stuff, and Coach O'Connell been part of this, and they do the game planning from week to week and so forth. And so when it was kind of like, okay, this is going to look like, he might not be able to be there for the game. He was actually able to be part of practice virtually. And
wow.
So what we did was
tell me about that, will you? So how does that work?
So we set a couple laptops up in the balcony, and we got on a Google Meet, and he could watch practice from home and be a part of it, and then I could interact with him in between segments of practice, and so he could see what's going on, and we continue to pass along ideas and and course adjustments or whatever as we went. So
now, what you really need to do, and I'm amazed that you and Coach O'Connell couldn't put this together with your, all the work you've done in robotics and stuff, and then you've got Coach O'Connell, who's just an expert with the soldering iron and has all those engineering classes. You could have Big Bang Theoried this thing and put him on a robot.
Yeah,
he could have been out there with his arms and everything, just done it all himself.
So well, he actually in
wire him up with one of those black suits with the ping pong balls on it. He could have been one of the players out there last night.
Actually. It's funny you say that, because it was almost that way, not quite to that extent, but Coach Beasley also had him on FaceTime on a phone, so we had that interaction as well from time to time. But the point being that it was a total coaching staff effort from the beginning of the week on, even though circumstances did not allow him to be there in person. He and Nate were involved in every facet all the way along. And then I just want to say something about the players too, because what it's like if when you have a substitute teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody takes it as seriously, right? And so the players, they have a choice to make when you have a situation like this where, hey, the head coach isn't there, and you got an assistant coach running things. Are we going to be are we going to be locked in mentally and physically, or are we just going to be like, well, the mice can play a little bit now?
Yeah.
And you know what? They did an awesome job. And we had a really good week of practice. We sort of, we started off a little bit light on Monday, and every day we just said, you know what? Our goal this week is every day is better than the day before. That's what we want to do. Every day. We're not looking for perfection, but we're looking for the next day to be better than the day before, then better than the day before that, and we just build towards Friday, and that just goes to show I think it just goes to show the leadership and the framework of the team from Coach Everingham down with Dukes and Welty on the players' end of it. That the structure, the discipline, the respect, it's all there, and it's not just a willy-nilly kind of whatever happens type of thing. There's mission, there's purpose, and there's desire, there's dedication to do things well, regardless of the circumstances, unique circumstances. But you know what? we're still going to do what we need to do.
Not only that, but the entire situation was unique because you were coming out of 4 days off, coming off the holiday tourney, which, that a little time off at Christmas isn't that unusual.
Right.
But it is an unusual practice situation because it's something you don't experience all that often. You were pleased with the way they came out of that 4 days off then?
Yes, yeah. So like I said, we kind of started off a little bit light. When I talk light, I mean not. It was a heavy like running day. It was a legs day, not just running lines, but like running up and down the court.
Sure.
A lot of full court stuff, just getting the blood back in the muscles and the oxygen back in the lungs type of thing. But not a lot of execution based stuff. But then we gradually ramped up until we sort of peaked on Wednesday in terms of working on execution, and then Thursday was just kind of a polishing day.
So last night, NorthWood, what did you think you were going to have coming into that ball game? Did it work the way you thought it would? And then what adjustments did you have to make? And were you pleased with how those occurred?
So when you play NorthWood, two of the things that you have to be prepared for is their rebounding and handling their pressure. And, their pressure is going to come in.
Because they're going to have physical strength and stamina. Yeah.
So those are two of the things that we prepared for. We know that they do like to, they also like to get out and transition if they can, which is part of their rebounding. If you take ill-advised shots, clankers that have long rebounds, they're going to release and they're going to get out and they're going to get layups. And so we were working on that. So we had to be disciplined on offense, but yet willing to attack when needed, and but we had to make sure that we were in control offensively. So against their pressure, we had to make sure that we were still in control of what we were doing offensively. And then we had that so good offensive possessions, good shots, kind of negate some of their rebounding abilities and some of their transition abilities.
And I thought on those two things, you did relatively well last night. They're high school kids. At moments, things are not going to go the right way, but I thought you handled their pressure relatively well, and your rebounding was, at least from Caz and I, we thought your rebounding was better than we were afraid it might be.
Yeah, so, statistically, they only out-rebounded us by 2 for the game, and their offensive rebounding, NorthWood's offensive rebounding is really one of their strengths also, and there's been a lot of games this year where they've gotten like 50% of their offensive rebounds, half, and I think we held them to like 27%,
which is pretty good against a team that physically strong.
So they were, anytime you can be under 30%, hold a team to under 30% offensive rebounding, that's pretty good. Now, we weren't really, we weren't able to be like. We didn't rebound well against them either. So it was just kind of a draw a little bit on that. So but that's good for us.
They were bigger than us. They're known for their physical strength. I mean, you have to have certain expectations going in, and I would think that you probably met those expectations or maybe even a little better.
Yes. Definitely Roush is a tremendous rebounder in there, and he had 5 rebounds, which is just that's a solid rebounding performance, but he didn't get up to that 8, 9, 10 level with offensive lay-ins and stuff like that. So we felt good about that. Welty, who did the lion's share of guarding him,
really kept him out of the tape for the most part last night.
Yeah. And then on the pressure end of it, in the first half,
I want to hear about this.
When we had our full complement,
right.
We and I don't have the stats on first half versus second half. I only have so I know we made more turnovers in the second half against the pressure. And with Dukes not being available to us, his ability to sort of to stretch the floor a little bit and allow us to sort of go vertical on stuff was diminished with him not being in there, but. Couldn't have been more proud of the guys that had to step in. I mean, Miles had to handle a big chunk of the ball handling, especially when Dukes wasn't in there. So Miles and Welty and so forth, and they just did a tremendous job. And Peyton Felger had to come in and play more guard than he usually does. And, that's not really a situation that we practiced a lot because, we weren't planning on not having, Dukes for the second half. So he had to come in and, he knew what was there. And he just did a really solid job. And I was proud of him. But, so we did get fatigued coming down the stretch.
You were down a man.
Yeah. And so we did lose some of our, one of the things, even if Dukes isn't, even during the stretches where he's not scoring, the defense still has to pay attention to him.
Yes.
And with him missing, then that means they can key on other guys. I mean, it was pretty obvious they were not going to let Maddox. They were not going to let Maddox be open in the corner for free shots. They were not going to come off him. So, anyway, we had 14 turnovers, which is a little higher than you like, but under the circumstances, I just felt like the two things that we needed to do to give ourselves a chance to win, rebound and handle the pressure, I feel like we did. I feel like the guys gave the best effort that they could and did the best job that they could in those circumstances, and I couldn't be more proud.
And they didn't quit. Right. Even though you were down that last quarter, and even though Bill and I even talked about that on the air, the intensity was still there. The desire was still there. They still moved the ball well and tried to get good shots. It was an excellent what you just called effort in the last two quarters. Even though it didn't come out well on our end score wise, I thought the offense or the effort that they gave for the whole game was really, really good.
And you guys have watched
a little bit of basketball,
millions of basketball games, and how many times have you seen when things start to get a little bit rattled, and
that's when
then guys just start. They'll just start
giving up.
The whole
up
thing
shots.
comes unwound.
And that never happened.
It never happened.
We stayed disciplined. We stayed to the game plan. We were missing some firepower, but we stayed with what we, and that was part of the talk before the game is, it's like I can't beat Coach Everingham. So I can only do what Coach Hoffert can do. You can only do what you can do, and we just do it to the best of our abilities.
And that's what NorthWood is known for. They wait until the cover starts to come off the ball. And once the cover and they took advantage of that last night. After Keaton's head got used as a volleyball on the floor, that's when they turned the pressure on. That's when the fog of war started to come in that first half. It was that exact moment. And your guys handled that high level of confusion. Yeah, we gave up the ball a couple of times, but we didn't come so unraveled. We didn't become so rattled, if you will, which we could have. The situation was there. We got control of it, brought it back under control, and we went forward.
Yeah, so, I have a phrase, and I don't know if it's my phrase or if I heard it somewhere, but, I say, reasons matter, excuses don't.
That's right.
And there's reasons why things happen. And when you have a player who gets injured, that's a reason for why something might not be working, might have to be changed or work differently. But it doesn't get turned into an excuse.
Exactly.
And you try to find solutions for the reasons without turning them into excuses. And I felt like we did the best we could with that.
Yeah, and that happened last night.
Yeah.
You went to that phrase and it was the phrase that worked the whole last half.
We'll come back and talk more with Coach Hoffert specifically about the development of the lower program, JV, and down from there here in just a moment on Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. And welcome back to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. Coach Chad Hoffert with us as we're talking a little bit now about JV. How's your JV doing this year, Coach?
Yeah, I'm really pleased with the progress that our JV team has made throughout the year. It took us a few games to sort of find ourselves and so forth. And as you know, and I know we've talked before in previous shows or previous years that the JV situation is a little bit unique because you don't get as much time together as a unit. So you sort of have to feel it out throughout games because you don't get quite the unit practice time like the freshman team does, and of course the varsity team
And
does.
to some extent, that's because you have to be the scout team for the varsity.
Yes. So we're used as pieces in the varsity practice quite a bit. And so, we had some really good learning experiences early in the year. We talk about, it's not about win and lose. It's about, win and learn. So you win or learn, or you win and learn, or whatever. And so we're always looking to learn from our situations. And we put a nice run of games together right before Christmas break with Columbia City, Central Noble, and then the holiday tournament. 4 games in a row that we were able to win all 4 of those games. And we really started playing some really good team basketball. And we started to find out that we are collectively, better than we are if we're just five individuals out there. And we're not the biggest JV team around by far. We're not the quickest, but we do have some solid skill sets, and so we have some shooting abilities. And pardon me, my voice is a little scratchy from last night. And,
well, you don't have that varsity coach scream yet that everyone else.
That will develop.
By the way, just a quick side note: what a crowd last night!
It was.
Yes, that was on both sides.
That was probably the biggest crowd we've had in that gym in a couple years, maybe. And obviously, COVID, wasn't much.
Well, it was all because you were there as the head coach.
Yeah, right. No, it was a great.
They all heard, "Hey, Jet Hoffert's good. We head coach tonight.
Great little,
I was getting calls from
local
LaGrange.
game.
Hey, is it true Hoffert's going to be the coach?
So anyway, with the JV team, we were really, we were really starting to click, and the idea of, hey, what are you doing to, it's our shot versus my shot, and what are you doing to help us get our shot, a good open shot. So if I set a good screen for somebody else, and if everybody has that mentality, well, then that means it's going to come back around to me as well. And eventually there's going to be a crack in the defense, and that's what you exploit, and then we get our good shot. And so that's sort of where we've been trying to build. And I've just been super proud of these guys. I mean, we did, the JV, I didn't get to coach them. I'm going to be honest with you. I had more anxiety thinking about those JV guys last night than about the varsity guys, because I've been in the trenches with those JV guys so many times, and I was like, I really I want them to do this, and I hope they do that, but I wasn't able to really be a part of it for them as much, obviously, and it is what it is on that. But I really feel for them. I really love those guys, and I really want what's best for them. But we didn't have Carson last night, and he was feeling under the weather, and he hopefully he'll be back next week. But Carson's done a great job. He's our leading rebounder, I think. For a guard.
Talk about Carson
Smith, yeah, a leading rebounder. And he's a good shooter, and he does a good job of attacking the basket. And and then Darius Lewis, who didn't, he played in middle school over at Milford last year as a freshman. He played in Michigan City, I believe.
Oh wow!
So he's back this year, and he
made the right choice.
So he brings a level of physicality to us. He's probably our most physical player, and he has really good penetration abilities, and kind of that mid-range and getting to the basket ability for us. And then Robbie Finlinson, he has a lot of range for a freshman in terms of shooting the ball. He can shoot from well behind the arc, and his ball handling has I've obviously I've seen the freshman class grow up from third grade on. And Robbie's ball handling has tremendously improved, in his passing. I think he's leading us in assists, and he also serves as sort of a backup, or as sort of a backup post defender for us when we need him to. So he's developing a good physicality that way. Weston Hoffert, I've been really pleased with his development, and he makes good decisions. He's leading us in 3-point shooting on the season, and he'll need to develop. He's a little small, and he'll need to develop a little bit more of a physical presence.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I understand.
So
where did he get that from?
I don't know.
You don't know? Hey, talk a little bit about that, about having your son and coaching him at this level. I think that is really a neat
because
thing.
It's still a developmental level.
Yeah. Like you and Everingham, I mean, you got the same situation.
Right. Well,
Now, wait a minute. Yes and no. Because Everingham is working at the varsity level.
Yeah.
That's
but,
not a
I mean,
developmental
still,
level.
The idea of coaching your own son.
That's true.
Go ahead.
So, I sort of made the decision. I was going to handle things a little bit differently than when Ben came through. So I coached that team starting with Ben pretty much every year from like third grade on. And there were times I was like, hey, does anybody else want to do it? So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't overcoaching my own kids. So I made an intent purpose to step away from coaching that grade level at various points. So I coached them a couple years in elementary, and then I said, you know what, it's somebody else's turn to coach them for a few years and so forth, because it's important for me to make sure that the coach and the coach athlete relationship and the father son relationship is understood and well defined. And so we have I'll be honest, I had to learn a little bit from my from coaching Ben in terms of how to handle that. So Hoffert 2.0 here is trying to do a little bit.
You're going to write a
little
book.
bit better, but
give me the title of that book.
Yeah,
I think we just did Hoffert 2.0.
That's what you took the mind right out of my thought, Bill.
We have a little code between the two of us, and
wow.
When he's an athlete, when he's a player, he's Hoff. And when he's my son, he's Weston.
Oh wow!
And I go. Weston's never going to get yelled at, but Hoff might. And so we try to, we just try to keep that relationship strong that way. But the rest of the guys, I'm going to tell you, Weston DeLong has tremendously shown great improvements from middle school and into last year and then up to this year. He is a legitimate 3-point shooter when he's left open. He is, if you look at from 7th and 8th grade to now, he is greatly increased his strength and his mobility and his footwork. He still has some room to go there, but it's been a great. He's on track to being a really positive player for us now. Going down the line, and I've been really pleased with him. He's got a great attitude, and he's always wanting to do what the coach and the team needs. Cole Young has really sort of from the beginning of the year through the Christmas break made tremendous improvements. He had he kind of got into a lull, and we kind of had a little bit of a conference, and we said, hey, you just got to step this up, and you got to step this up, and then other things will happen, and things like rebounding and effort, things that you can kind of control and just make decisions on, and I've been super pleased because he was a big part of that 4-game run that we had before Christmas break, just the way that he stepped up that way. And then Mason Shoemaker is our, he's the energy piece, for both the JV and the varsity. He's vocal, and he's he never takes a play off. So his skill is developing, and he is gaining, a lot more trust in terms of what his abilities are offensively, but just in terms of his defense and his energy, he's always there. It's a constant for us. So those are the seven guys that we pretty much run with, and then we have some of the freshmen, some of the C team that have started dressing for us, and there'll be times where they'll get mixed in as well, and so forth. So. We're
it's that time of the year when that generally happens.
Yeah. So they're right now they're still going to be playing their C team schedule, but then they're dressing for the home games, and they can play some minutes as needed, in the JV games.
Coach, talk a little bit about your background. Bill and I have been talking about. I just want to hear about. This is really interesting. I did not know.
The most important part would probably be the Caz Szynal mentoring years. Right?
No. It's the reverse. I did not know that you played in the band.
So,
Tell about, I mean, that gives you some development on how to move toward the basket. Go ahead, talk a little bit about your Wabasee experience.
I don't know that I would call myself a musician per se, but I've always enjoyed music. There's no way I would make a living at it or anything like that for sure. But I always I'll talk to my students and it'll kind of surprise them. I took 6 years of piano lessons when I was a kid. And
wow!
I can still dink around a little bit, but I was in the band and the choir and I loved it. And so I was with with Mr. Van Loo and the what we called varsity singers back in the day, the top show choir. I don't really know what it's called.
That's exactly what it's called.
Yeah, I don't know what's it called today. What do they have?
They don't have one right now.
Okay, so anyway, but it was fun. We got to travel to different venues. We for choir we went to Washington D.C. one time. For the band we went down to the Gator Bowl. We did a lot of.
Wow.
We got to do a lot of really neat experiences. And Mr. Bailey and Mr. Blackwell were, in my opinion, two of the best. And they were both fun to be around, but they were also like coaches. They were also no nonsense when it was time to.
You
want somebody who could yell at somebody? Dave Blackwell could get it done. He could.
Yeah,
he didn't put up with it. He didn't put up with it.
Nothing.
Go ahead, talk about that.
He knew just like I tell guys. I said, if you put in the work, you'll get to have fun.
Yeah.
You got to prioritize, and you got to put in the work first, so that the fun is available to you. And Mr. Blackwell was really great in leading that way. And he knew that there's certain elements, just like in coaching, you got to get this right. If you don't get this right, nothing else is going to work on this piece, or whatever it is. And so being a music director and being a coach, there's a lot of similarities. Two different avenues, so to speak, but there's a lot of in terms of motivating kids and instructing kids. There's a lot of similarities, and I wish we still kind of lived in the day where kids could do anything and everything, and I was, like I said, in the marching band and all those things. Now they kind of have to pick and choose a little bit more, but I really enjoyed those times.
I was just going to ask about that. How did that work with your time schedule? I mean, if you were in the band and playing sports, did you ever get a chance to sleep or eat?
So I ran cross country, so I didn't play.
Oh my gosh!
I didn't play football, so the football players did have to do a little bit more picking and choosing on some stuff, and I played basketball, so I was not in the pep band, but I did all the concert stuff, and I did as much of the band stuff of the marching stuff as the schedule would allow, and was always things were able to be worked out so that you could be there for the big events. If you couldn't be there for everything, they understood, but you could be there for the big stuff.
Coach, thanks for being with us today. I really appreciate that, and congratulations on your varsity coaching career here so far. You're ready to step off and take on the Celtics or the Bulls. I hear the Bears. Maybe you want to switch over to football. The Bears are looking for somebody this morning.
That was my debut and my finale, all in the same deal. I told the officials, I said, hey, you know what? I'm ready to go for everything. I'm going to be Norman Dale from Hoosiers. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. We'll be back with Coach O'Connell to talk about next week's opponent, Mishawaka, here in just a moment on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. And welcome back to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. Back with the assistant varsity head coach, Nate O'Connell, as we head into the remainder of the Northern Lakes Conference season. We've got Mishawaka next up on the agenda. Always interesting when you play Mishawaka because, A, it's always a bit of a black box. You don't know exactly what you're going to get when you play Mishawaka specifically. But, B, you do always know, or at least it seems, we've not played them that many years yet, but it seems that when you play Mishawaka, you better bring your track shoes.
Yeah, they the last few years we've played them, they've been athletic, They've had some guys with some length and some jumping ability, and they've had a real good scorer the last few years in Trent Johnson, and thankfully he graduated. We don't have to worry about him this year.
Nothing like graduation to clear the decks.
But you're right. If you look at the roster from year to year, most teams we play, you pick out 3 or 4 guys on the previous year's team, and they're the guys that slide up to the top of the scouting report, and that's how it usually works. Whereas Mishawaka, I took a look yesterday, just getting an initial scouting report going, and there's like maybe 3 guys, and only one of them was a significant part of the scouting report last year, whether through graduation or guys, leaving, Mishawaka, South Bend, guys transfer around all the time. So you're right. We don't know what to get. We know to expect a fast-paced game. They always like the pressure, full court, half court pressure, and that's the kind of game we're looking forward to again this year.
Again, Mishawaka was a very exciting game. I mean, we were in it a lot of the time, and then they just sort of pulled out. It's really interesting the way that Wawasee. I mean, the first quarter we've won a lot, and then the second quarter is usually a draw, and then the third and fourth quarter, man, it comes back, and sometimes we get it together and make it to the very end, and then sometimes they have those runs and we're not able to get back to it. So how are you guys coaching on that?
I don't know. You just you hope for the best, and you train and you train and you train for certain situations, and the guys will respond, and when they don't win or are successful, they learn from it so they can do it the next time. But you're right about Mishawaka. The last few times we played them have been exciting, close games. 2 years ago we had them beat up there, and they made a furious comeback in the fourth quarter. I remember Hardy and Miller in that game, and Miller had just come off a big game. That was when we were playing them after Goshen before they joined the NLC. 3 years ago was an overtime game here. We had played Goshen the night before in double overtime, and that was an exciting game. And, Coach Hecklinski always brings his team, and I don't care if he has any skill or talent on his team, he's going to get those guys to play hard no matter what. He's a Hall of Famer. And this is actually his last year. I've seen that he announced his retirement at the end of the season. So I'm sure his guys are going to play hard for him. They always do. And they'll have, a good team ready to play.
Talk a little bit about this point. Now that we are more than halfway into the year, earlier, it's all about us. Practice, it's all about us. We've got to develop who we are. We've got to work on our own stuff. We have to be who we are. At a certain point, you start to work more on who they are. You start to become more focused on the other team, because your skill level, your development week to week is going to start to plateau. Where are we in that time frame right now?
Well, usually if you think about a week in terms of 5 days, early in the season, you're practicing 5 days on your stuff. You're getting better. And by the end of the year, maybe those 5 days turns into 2 days where you're practicing your stuff. And we're at the point right now where we're about 2.5, 3 days on us. A conference game like NorthWood this week, we really turned our attention to them on Wednesday and Thursday this week. So, Coach Hoffert did a nice job on Monday and Tuesday doing all of our stuff. 5-on-0, 5-on-5, offense, defense, rebounding, transition. And then Wednesday we started putting in, okay, here's their guys. This is what they like to do. Here's a small adjustment in our offense that we're going to take and do that we think will be successful against how they play us. So we do more and more of that. And again, that'll probably start Wednesday and Thursday this week since we play on Friday. But Monday and Tuesday will be us getting better on our stuff, making sure we're all on the same page. And then Wednesday we start to talk about, okay, what defensive adjustments, what offensive adjustments will we need to make that'll help us this week, and maybe even the next week against Plymouth or the next week against whoever comes after that.
One of the things I've been watching is that you guys always have a enthusiasm. Even when you're behind, the bench comes out and does well. The starters come out and do well. You do a great job. You three guys do a great job of subbing. I should even mention Beasley a little bit, but but you guys really work together well. And the guys on the bench are never just wanting to be on their devices. They're into the game. Tell me a little bit.
Please tell me we're not allowing devices on.
No,
the bench.
I'm just.
Please
you're right.
tell me
there
are no cell phones on.
But they don't even want to. They are transfixed on the people that are out there.
I have a hard enough time with them being even close to them in the classroom, let alone on the bench. Please.
Well, I used to say, hey,
let's not go there.
If I see it, it's mine. So I never had any problem with it. Yeah, go ahead, Coach. It's such great intensity on everybody on that team.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's team chemistry. Number one, I think the last 4 or 5 years, I've been here with Coach Everingham. Guys genuinely like each other, and they root on each other, and they want their teammates to be successful. And you can tell the guys on the varsity team are working for each other. They're not trying to get their own shot. They're actually working for each other, trying to get somebody else the best shot, and they love each other. So that kind of stuff. It's obvious when you see it on the bench, though, right? So you can see guys up cheering, and it's obvious when you play against teams where it's not there. Mm-hmm. And so we make a conscious effort. Coach Everingham does a great job of making a serious, conscious effort of, having guys on the bench that are going to be into the game. So they know that if they're not into the game, they won't be on that bench. They'll be behind the team.
Now, and I hate to do this, but I'm going to.
Go ahead, Bill. Okay. You don't hate to do it. Come on.
It's possible, in fact, it almost occurs every year, though, to take that one step too far, where you give up the 3-foot shot for the 1-foot shot. We saw one episode of that last night, Caz and I thought, where a kid should have taken the shot instead of passed for the better shot because the odds were significant. They were good odds for the shot he could have had. Mm-hmm. And the pass was actually, while the 1-foot shot maybe would have had a better shot, the pass became the problem. And we lost the ball on that.
Mm-hmm. Bill, you took the mind right out of my thought. I was just going to say the same thing.
They've got to experience that before they know not to do it, right? I mean, I used to tell my disc jockeys years ago, you're going to walk up to the line, and by the way, you're going to cross the line, and you're going to fall in the chasm. And we're going to pull you back out, and it's going to be okay. But that's the only way you're ever going to know where the line is. Isn't that true for your kids, too?
Yeah, you want to be able to pull it back. You don't want to have to push it the other way, So it's a lot harder to force a kid to make the extra pass when we're working with kids that are super unselfish and they want to make the extra pass for their teammate. That's okay. Well, we can coach that. Mm-hmm. We actually, told Caden Welty on Thursday, hey, you've been getting into the paint and making that extra pass. Let's score 20, 30 points tonight. So,
boy, isn't that a perfect example? There's a kid who has been making the pass all year long. He has been distributing like a hubcap. I mean, he's been passing the ball everywhere, okay? Last night he had 13, I think, and really scored some good points and could have driven more often than he did. Now you're trying to get him to that point.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's a great example is Caden. His game has progressed this year. Early on, we were saying drive, get into the paint, kick out for some open shots. And this week, told him, it's your time, buddy. You have been a great player for us all year long, and we think you're capable of scoring, 20 points against NorthWood tonight. And had Duke stayed in the lineup last night, maybe he could have scored 20 points last night with a little bit of help and just how NorthWood was playing us. But super proud of Caden and his development. But that's, again, telling him to go from that to being, a little more, maybe not selfish, but wanting to score the ball a little bit more is a lot easier than a guy that's going to try to shoot it every time and say, hey, you need to pass the ball a little bit more. And, we don't really have that problem, and that's a great thing not to have to deal with.
I was just thinking again, Bill, and I was just going to, that you and I were on the same wavelength there about overpassing. But I think your kids have all been doing a great job of taking the shots, especially, the Everingham twins and Dukes. If they've got the shot, and if they miss, everybody's trying to get the rebound. Nobody cares if they miss. They go, nobody does that.
Yeah, if you look at our scoring over the last few weeks, and it's been balanced. And one game Dukes has 30. Next game, Welty has 13. Maddox hits 6 threes. He's got 18. Miles has a big game, and it's just, Collins double here and there, and then it's hard to guard a team when they're as balanced as what we've been.
Well, and that's where you need to be at this point of the season, right? Is you need to have multiple weapons so that they cannot focus, they being the opposition, cannot focus on one or two things.
Yeah, if we've had a weakness in the last few years, it's just been, we might have had a weak link here or there offensively where teams could really leave somebody and not have to really guard somebody, and that makes it a lot tougher to score. We do the same thing to other teams when we recognize some things like that. And it's just really difficult to score when you have basically an extra guy focused on helping.
I was just looking at the minutes here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys all having double-digit minutes.
Yeah.
So you really used your bench a lot last night, pulling kids in and out. And then after Dukes got hurt, you really had to be able to do that really, really well to try to stay in the game. So I thought you guys did a great job of rotating your people, getting people in, and taking good shots. If you would have been able to get them to fall a little better, it would have really been a cliffhanger.
Yeah, but that's that. I mean, you're talking about rolling the dice. Anytime you put a ball up, there's a chance it's going in and a chance it isn't. It's probability theory. Go ahead, Coach.
But yeah, we know we have to do a better job of getting guys minutes and not overplaying too many guys. We're going 32 minutes with some of our starters earlier in the year, and just it takes some time. Honestly, it takes some time for a role player, a bench player, to earn the coach's trust, to know what exactly we're going to get out of that player when they go in the game. And I think we're at the point now where we have 7 guys pretty consistently that we can get out there and roll with. We'd like to develop or have an 8th guy step up. And we've been working on that, and we've Shoemaker's done a nice job when he's come up. You saw Robbie Finlinson get in the game at the end last night, and he's a young kid still, but we're working with him, getting him better defensively so he can function defensively in a varsity basketball game. We all know he can shoot, he can dribble a little bit, he can rebound, so those are good things. It's just a couple of the other JV guys that we've been working with this year too, to try to. The ultimate goal of those guys is to get in that 8-man rotation, 9-man rotation, so we can rest some guys. So Caden Welty doesn't look like he's tired. You've seen how tired he looks at the end of the game sometimes because he's playing
32 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about your JV squads.
I'll let Coach
how are they contributing?
I'll let Coach Hoffert talk about the JV team. He's here today, so you guys probably talked to him earlier today. But I'm super proud of those guys as well. They're getting better. They lost a tough one last night, but they played some really good basketball up until that point. So I'm super happy with the job Coach Hoffert's done and that team and how they've grown this year. And I'm looking forward to those guys contributing at the varsity level, hopefully sooner than later. And we should mention we do expect Coach Everingham back next week, right? Yeah, he'll be back Monday, full force. Very good. Coach, thank you very much for being with us today. This has been Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com, WRWTLP, Syracuse.